Across the vast expanse of the galaxy, the Galactic Council gathered on Nexus Prime. Its members, beings of unimaginable power, sneered at the mere mention of humanity's offer. 500 humans, they said, could never stand against the might of the Zephyrian Empire's 50,000 elite shock troops. They laughed, mocked, and underestimated Earth's fragile, pink-skinned warriors. But in the shadow of Kepler 442b, as humanity prepared for a battle no one thought they could win, the galaxy was about to learn one irrefutable truth. The size of an army doesn't matter when it has humans in it. They thought it was a joke, but humanity was about to rewrite the meaning of impossible. The Galactic Council's greatest joke, the crystalline halls of Nexus Prime, buzzed with tension as representatives from across the galaxy gathered for an emergency session. The massive chamber, carved from a single asteroid and polished to mirror perfection, reflected the worried faces of dozens of alien species. At the center of the circular amphitheater stood Ambassador Thylos, his blue skin shimmering with anxiety as he addressed the assembled council. Fellow delegates, Thylos began, his voice carrying across the chamber through universal translators. We face an unprecedented threat. The Zephyrian Empire has broken the Galactic Accords. Their fleets now move toward the peaceful world of Kepler 442b, home to our crystal-singing friends, the Keplerians. A collective murmur rippled through the audience. The Keplerians were beloved throughout the galaxy for their art and peaceful nature. Their crystal cities produced the most beautiful music in known space, and their nonviolent philosophy had inspired countless civilizations to choose diplomacy over war. How many ships? Asked Representative Korth, his reptilian features twisted with concern. 50,000 shock troops, Thylos replied grimly. Led by General Krex himself. The Keplerians have no military. They will be slaughtered within hours of the invasion. The chamber erupted in discussion. Some species called for immediate military intervention, while others worried about provoking the mighty Zephyrian Empire. The Zephyrians were known throughout the galaxy as ruthless conquerors, their gray-skinned warriors standing nearly 8 feet tall, and possessing natural armor plating that could deflect most energy weapons. What forces can we muster? Demanded General Vorthak of the Andorian Defense Fleet. The Androians can spare perhaps 5,000 troops, Thylos calculated aloud. The Cetacean Alliance promises 3,000 aquatic specialists. The Insectoid Collective offers 2,000 drones. Combined with our own forces, we might field 15,000 soldiers. Still not enough, growled Commander Resh, her cybernetic implants glowing red with frustration. The Zephyrians have superior technology, better armor, and more experience. We need a miracle. That's when Captain Sarah Chun stepped forward from the human delegation section. At 5 feet 6 inches tall, she looked almost comically small compared to the towering aliens around her. Her dark hair was pulled back in a regulation military bun, and her crisp Terra Defense Corps uniform bore the insignia of Earth's finest military unit. The Terran Defense Corps volunteers for this mission, she announced, her voice clear and confident. The chamber fell silent. Then, slowly, laughter began to ripple through the assembled delegates. It started as quiet chuckles but grew into full-throated guffaws. Even Ambassador Thylos struggled to maintain his diplomatic composure. With respect, Captain Chun, Thylos managed between barely suppressed giggles. How many troops can humanity spare? 500. Sarah replied without hesitation. The laughter exploded into a thunderous roar. Representatives slapped their various appendages on their desks, some species making sounds that could only be described as hysterical. The insectoid delegates' wings buzzed with mirth, while the cetacean sonar clicks created a symphony of amusement. 500, wheezed General Vorthak, against 50,000 Zephyrian shock troops? Captain, with all due respect to your species, humans are small, fragile, and technologically inferior. Your people have barely achieved interstellar travel. What could you possibly do against the Empire's elite forces? Sarah's expression remained perfectly calm. Behind her, 3 other humans maintained their military bearing despite the mockery. Marcus Rodriguez, nicknamed tank for his stocky build and love of heavy weapons, cracked his knuckles quietly. Dr. Elena Vasquez, the team's medic and engineer, made notes on her tablet with scientific precision. Lieutenant Jake Thompson, so pale and quiet his squad called him Ghost, simply observed the aliens with calculating eyes. General Krex will crush your tiny army before breakfast, laughed Representative Korth. The Zephyrians eat species stronger than humans for sport. They'll use your bones as toothpicks. Perhaps, Sarah nodded acknowledgement, but we're going anyway. This provoked another wave of laughter. Ambassador Thylos raised his hand for silence, though his own mandibles still twitched with amusement. Captain Chen, I admire your courage, but this is not a game. The Zephyrians are the most feared military force in the galaxy. They've conquered 17 star systems in the past decade. Their warriors are genetically enhanced, their weapons can pierce any known armor, and their tactics are flawless. Sending 500 humans would be like sending children to fight dragons. Then it's a good thing we're not children, Sarah replied. We're humans. The distinction seemed lost on the alien delegates, who continued to chuckle at what they perceived as naive bravado. Sarah turned to address the full chamber. I understand your skepticism, she said, her voice carrying despite her small stature. Humanity is new to galactic politics. We don't have energy shields or plasma cannons. We can't naturally survive in vacuum or regrow lost limbs. By every measure you use, we appear weak. Because you are weak, interrupted Commander Resh. No offense intended, but humans are among the most physically limited species in the galaxy. You require constant environmental support, your lifespans are brief, and your bodies are embarrassingly fragile. All true, Sarah agreed, but you're missing something important. You're judging us by galactic standards, not human ones. On Earth, we have a saying, it's not the size of the dog in the fight, it's the size of the fight in the dog. The translator struggled with the idiom, producing confused clicks and whistles from various species. Sarah pressed on. For millions of years, humans survived on a death world. We had no natural weapons, no armor, no special abilities. We were prey animals who became predators through sheer determination. We learned to adapt, to innovate, to never give up. Those traits don't show up on your tactical assessments. Pretty words, scoffed General Vorthak. But words won't stop Zephyrian plasma rifles. No, Sarah agreed, but humans will. The laughter had died down now, replaced by uncomfortable silence. The aliens weren't sure if they should be amused or concerned by this small human's confidence. Ambassador Thylos cleared his throat. Captain Chen, I cannot officially sanction a suicide mission. The Galactic Council has a responsibility to protect its members, even from their own poor judgment. Then we'll go unofficially, Sarah stated. The Terra Defense Corps doesn't need Council approval to defend innocent life. We took an oath to protect those who cannot protect themselves, regardless of species or politics. Behind her, Marcus, Elena, and Jake nodded in unison. Their commitment was absolute, their resolve unshakable. It was this unity that made the alien delegates pause their mockery for a moment. Very well. Thylos sighed. If humanity insists on this folly, the Council will not stop you. But we cannot provide support or resources. You will be entirely on your own. Understood, Sarah replied. We'll make our own way. As the session broke up, alien delegates clustered in small groups, discussing the humans' decision with mixtures of pity and amusement. The consensus was clear. The 500 humans would be dead within hours of reaching Kepler 442b, and their sacrifice would be quickly forgotten. But in the Terra Defense Corps preparation room, a different conversation was taking place. Marcus was reviewing weapon specifications while Elena studied Keplerian biology. Jake analyzed satellite images of the target world, identifying potential tactical advantages. They think we're walking into a slaughter, Elena observed without looking up from her research. They're right, Jake replied quietly. 50,000 to 500. Those are impossible odds. Since when do humans care about impossible odds? Marcus grinned, hefting a modified plasma rifle. Remember the Alamo. Remember Thermopylae. Remember every time someone said something couldn't be done, and humans did it anyway. Sarah nodded approvingly. The galaxy is about to learn something about humanity that they've never understood. We don't win because we're the biggest or strongest or most advanced. We win because we refuse to lose. What's the plan, Captain? Elena asked. Simple, Sarah replied, pulling up a holographic display of Kepler 442b. We're going to save the Keplerians, defeat the Zephyrian Empire, and show the galaxy that humans are not to be underestimated. And how exactly do we do that? Jake inquired that Sarah's smile was predatory. By being human. Across the galaxy, General Krex received the intelligence report about human intervention with barely concealed glee. Standing over 8 feet tall, his gray skin covered in natural armor plating, he was the pinnacle of Zephyrian military evolution. His red eyes glowed with anticipation as he read the details. 500 humans, he rumbled his aide. This is almost insulting. I was hoping for a real challenge. Shall we adjust our invasion timeline, General? Asked Commander Vex, his second-in-command. No, Krex replied, crushing the data pad in his massive fist. Let them come. It will be amusing to crush this Terra Defense Corps before we begin the real work of conquering Kepler 442b. The galaxy will see what happens to those who oppose the Empire. Little did he know that the galaxy was indeed about to see something unprecedented. The humans were coming, and they brought with them something no alien species had ever truly understood. The indomitable human spirit. The Terra Defense Corps ships launched from Earth's orbital stations, 500 soldiers prepared for a battle that would either end in glorious victory or heroic sacrifice. Either way, they would face it as humans always had, together determined and absolutely refusing to surrender. The stage was set for the most unlikely military engagement in galactic history. The Zephyrians expected an easy victory. The Galactic Council expected a quick massacre. The Keplerians expected to die. None of them expected humans to be human. When David met Goliath in space, the crimson skies of Kepler 442 be stretched endlessly above the crystal cities of the Keplerian homeworld. From orbit, the planet looked like a jewel scattered with diamonds, each settlement a masterpiece of living crystal architecture that hummed with ethereal music. The sound carried on the wind, a haunting melody that spoke of peace, art, and a civilization that had never known war. Captain Sarah Chin stood on the observation deck of the transport ship Defiant, watching the planet grow larger through the reinforced viewport. Behind her, the 500 members of the Terra Defense Corps made final preparations for deployment. The contrast between the peaceful world below and the military activity around her was not lost on Sarah. Beautiful, isn't it? Asked Dr. Elena Vasquez, joining her at the viewport. According to my readings, the entire planet resonates with harmonic frequencies. The Keplerians don't just build with crystal, they grow with it. Their cities are living symphonies. Makes what we're about to do even more important, Sarah replied grimly. A species that creates beauty like this doesn't deserve to be destroyed by the Empire's war machine. Lieutenant Jake Thompson materialized beside them like a ghost, his pale, features serious. Reconnaissance drones are back, Captain. The Zephyrians are already in system. 50 ships, just like Intel reported. They'll reach orbit in 18 hours. What about surface preparations? Sarah asked. The Keplerians are trying to evacuate their crystal cities, but they're not built for speed. Most of their population will still be planetside when the invasion begins. Jake's expression grew darker. Captain, I've studied Zephyrian tactics. They don't take prisoners. They don't negotiate. They arrive, they conquer, they eliminate resistance. Marcus Rodriguez approached their group, his heavy weapons gear clanking softly. Just finished inventory, Captain. We've got enough firepower to level a small city, but against 50,000 shock troops. He shrugged. We'll need to be creative. Sarah nodded. That's always been humanity's strength. We don't overpower our enemies, we outthink them. Elena, what did you learn about local conditions? Elena consulted her tablet. The planet's unique. The crystal formations aren't just decorative, they're part of a planet-wide network. The Keplerians use them for communication, power generation, and environmental control. If we can interface with that network, we might be able to turn their own world into a weapon. Interesting, Sarah mused. Jake, what about terrain advantages? The crystal caverns run deep, Captain. Natural tunnel systems that connect most of the major cities. Perfect for guerrilla warfare. The Zephyrians will have air superiority, but underground, we could move undetected. And the Keplerians themselves. Elena's expression softened. They're not warriors, Captain. They're artists, philosophers, musicians. Their leader, Keeper Zenth, barely understands the concept of violence. They're counting on us to protect them. Sarah felt the weight of responsibility settle on her shoulders. 500 humans against 50,000 Zephyrian shock troops, defending a species that had never held a weapon. By any rational calculation, it was suicide. Listen up, everyone, she called out, her voice carrying across the transport bay. 500 faces turned toward her, soldiers, technicians, medics, engineers. Each one had volunteered for this mission, knowing the odds. Each one represented the best of humanity. In 6 hours, we'll be planet-side. The Zephyrians will arrive 12 hours after that. They expect to find a defenseless world populated by crystal-singing pacifists. Instead, they're going to find us. A rumble of approval ran through the assembled troops. I won't lie to you, Sarah continued. This is the hardest mission any of us has ever faced. The enemy outnumbers us 100 to 1. Their technology is superior. Their warriors are bigger, stronger, and more experienced. By every tactical manual in existence, we should retreat. But we're not retreating, called out Sergeant Patricia Wong from the back of the group. No, we're not, Sarah agreed. Because we're human. And humans don't abandon innocent people to monsters. We don't calculate odds when lives are at stake. We don't surrender when the cause is just. The transport shuddered as it entered the planet's atmosphere. Through the viewports, the crystal cities grew larger, their spires catching the alien sunlight like frozen music. The galaxy thinks we're weak, Sarah said, raising her voice over the engine noise. They think we're small, fragile, insignificant. They're about to learn that they're wrong. We're not strong because of our bodies. We're strong because of our spirits. We're not dangerous because of our weapons. We're dangerous because of our determination. The transport touched down in a crystalline plaza surrounded by towering spires. As the bay doors opened, the haunting music of the Keplerian cities washed over them. It was beautiful, alien, and utterly peaceful. Waiting for them was Keeper Zenth, the Keplerian leader, standing 7 feet tall, but incredibly thin, his crystalline body caught and reflected light in mesmerizing patterns. When he spoke, his voice chimed like wind bells. "Welcome, humans," he said, his words translated by their universal communicators. "We are grateful for your presence, though we do not understand why you would risk yourselves for strangers." "Because that's what humans do," Sarah replied simply. "We help those who need help." Zentha's crystalline features shifted in what might have been surprise. The Zephyrians have demanded our surrender. They promise quick deaths if we comply. We have no concept of warfare, no weapons, no defenses. We are as helpless as newborn crystals. "Not anymore," Marcus said, shouldering his heavy plasma rifle. "You've got humans now." The next 12 hours passed in a blur of activity. The Terra Defense Corps spread throughout the crystal cities, studying the terrain, establishing communication networks, and preparing defensive positions. Elena worked with Keplerian engineers to understand their crystal technology, while Jake's reconnaissance teams mapped every tunnel and cavern. Marcus and his weapons specialists began the process of turning everyday objects into instruments of war. Using human ingenuity and alien materials, they crafted explosives from crystal resonators, turned architectural supports into improvised artillery, and created traps that would have impressed the engineers of ancient Earth. The beauty of human warfare, Marcus explained to a fascinated group of Keplerian observers, is that we can make weapons out of anything. On Earth, We learned to fight with sticks and stones. Here, we'll fight with crystals and music. As the Zephyrian fleet entered orbit, Sarah gathered her team leaders for a final briefing. The enemy ships were massive, bristling with weapons and carrying enough firepower to reduce the planet's surface to rubble. They're not bothering with orbital bombardment, Jake reported. Krex wants the crystal cities intact. He's planning a ground assault to minimize infrastructure damage. That's our advantage, Sarah realized. He's overconfident. He thinks this will be easy, so he's not using maximum force. Still 50,000 troops, Elena pointed out. Even overconfident, they're overwhelming. Then we don't fight them head-on, Sarah decided. We fight them smart. We use their arrogance against them. We make them think they're winning right up until the moment they lose. The first Zephyrian dropships screamed through the atmosphere like falling meteors. Each one carried 100 shock troops, their gray armor gleaming in the alien sunlight. General Krex himself led the assault, his massive form dominating the command ship's bridge. "Commence planetary assault," he ordered, his voice a bass rumble that made the ship's hull vibrate. "Eliminate all resistance. Secure the crystal cities. Any humans you encounter are to be killed immediately. I want their pathetic gesture of defiance to end quickly." The dropships landed in perfect formation around the largest crystal city. Ramps lowered, and Zephyrian shock troops marched out in disciplined ranks. Each warrior stood over 7 feet tall, their natural armor plating supplemented by advanced battle gear. Their plasma rifles could burn through starship hulls, and their tactical visors provided complete battlefield awareness. They expected to face cowering Keplerians and a handful of human soldiers. Instead, they found empty streets and singing crystals. "Where is everyone?" muttered Commander Vex, scanning the deserted plaza with his weapon raised. "Hiding?" Krex replied dismissively. "The humans probably told them to run. It won't matter. We'll hunt them down systematically." But as the Zephyrian forces spread through the city, they began to realize something was wrong. The emptiness felt deliberate, planned. The singing crystals weren't random. They were following a pattern, a melody that seemed to pull the invaders deeper into the city. That's when the first trap triggered. Marcus had spent hours studying Keplerian crystal technology, learning how their harmonic frequencies could be manipulated. When the lead Zephyrian squad reached the city center, he activated resonance cascade that turned the beautiful crystal spires into massive tuning forks. The sound was beyond hearing. It was a physical force that hit the Zephyrian troops like a sledgehammer. Their armor, designed to deflect energy weapons, offered no protection against sonic assault. Warriors who had conquered star systems collapsed, their inner ears destroyed, their nervous systems overwhelmed. What was that? Krex roared over the communications channel. Unknown sonic weapon, Vex reported, his own voice shaking. "Half my advanced team is down. The humans have turned the city itself into a weapon." "Impossible," Krex snarled. "They're primitives with projectile weapons. They can't have that kind of technology." But even as he spoke, more traps activated throughout the city. Crystal formations that had appeared decorative revealed themselves as sophisticated defensive systems. Harmonic frequencies disrupted Zephyrian communications. Resonance fields interfered with their weapons. The beautiful, peaceful city had become a maze of death. From her position in the underground command center, Sarah watched the enemy forces stumble through her carefully prepared killing ground. The Keplerian crystal network provided real-time intelligence, showing her every enemy movement, every tactical decision. "Phase 1 complete," she reported to her team leaders. "Enemy forces are disorganized and confused. Jake, begin Phase 2. In the tunnels beneath the city, Jake Thompson lived up to his nickname. His reconnaissance teams moved like ghosts through the crystal caverns, emerging behind enemy lines to strike at command units and supply convoys. They used the Keplerians' own transportation crystals to move instantly between distant locations, appearing and disappearing like phantoms. "Contact rear. 1, Zephyrian commander reported. Enemy forces in our supply lines. How did they get behind us?" The answer was uniquely human. While the Zephyrians focused on traditional military tactics, the humans had adapted to an alien environment, turning the planet's own systems against the invaders. They didn't fight like any species the Empire had encountered before. That Elena's contribution came in the form of medical warfare. Using her knowledge of Zephyrian physiology, she had developed non-lethal compounds that targeted their specific biology. Gas clouds that caused temporary paralysis, sonic frequencies that induced nausea, electromagnetic pulses that disrupted their neural implants. They're not trying to kill us, Commander Vex realized as his troops stumbled through another cloud of debilitating gas. They're trying to disable us. Why? The answer came from Sarah herself, speaking through the city's crystal communication network. Her voice echoed from every spire, every formation, every surface that could resonate. General Krex, she said, her words carrying across the battlefield. This is Captain Sarah Chun of the Terra Defense Corps. Your invasion has failed. Withdraw your forces now, and we'll allow you to leave with your lives. The laughter that responded was thunderous. Krex's voice boomed from his command ship, amplified by military speakers. You think you've won, little human? You've disabled a few thousand troops with your clever tricks. I still have 40,000 warriors. I still have orbital support. I still have the power to turn this entire planet into glass. You could, Sarah agreed, but you won't, because you're not here to destroy Kepler 442b. You're here to conquer it, and you can't conquer what you've destroyed. There was a pause. Krex was beginning to understand that he was facing something unprecedented, an enemy that understood his own limitations better than he did. Besides, Sarah continued, your troops aren't just disabled. They're learning. As if to prove her point, reports began flooding in from across the battlefield. Zephyrian soldiers were helping their fallen comrades. Warriors who had been enemies of the Empire were being treated by human medics. The distinction between conqueror and conquered was blurring in ways that had never happened before. For the first time in his military career, General Krex faced an enemy that wasn't trying to destroy him. They were trying to convert him, and that was far more terrifying than any weapon. The day the galaxy learned to respect humanity, the crystal caverns beneath Kepler 442 hummed with activity as the Terra Defense Corps established their final defensive positions. Captain Sarah Chun stood before a massive holographic display showing the tactical situation across the planet. Red dots represented Zephyrian forces, blue showed human positions, and green indicated Keplerion civilians still being evacuated through the underground networks. Status report, she called out to her team leaders. Marcus Rodriguez wiped sweat from his brow, his heavy weapons gear showing signs of intense fighting. We've neutralized about 8,000 enemy troops, but they're adapting to our tactics. Krex has pulled his forces back and is regrouping for a coordinated assault. Their medical teams are learning to counter our non-lethal compounds. Elena added, studying her tablet. We bought ourselves maybe 6 hours before they develop full immunity. Jake Thompson emerged from the shadows, his pale features grim. Intelligence reports are troubling. Captain, Krex is bringing down his orbital reserves. 20,000 fresh troops, plus heavy armor and artillery. He's done playing games. Sarah nodded grimly. The first phase of their defense had succeeded beyond expectations, but the Zephyrian general was too experienced to be fooled twice. The real battle was about to begin. What about the Keplerians, she asked. Keeper Zenth and his people are safe in the deep caverns, Elena reported. But Captain, they're asking to help. They want to fight alongside us. Absolutely not, Sarah replied immediately. They're pacifists. They've never hurt another living being. I won't be responsible for turning them into killers. With respect, Captain, came a chiming voice from a cavern entrance. That decision is not yours to make. Everyone turned to see Keeper Zenth, approaching, his crystalline form glowing with soft light. Behind him came dozens of other Keplerians, their musical voices creating a harmony that resonated through the stone. Keeper Zenth, Sarah said, you should be in the evacuation zones. It's not safe here. Nowhere is safe, Captain Chun, the Keplerion leader replied. General Krex has made his intentions clear. If you cannot stop him, my people will die, regardless. We have decided to stand with you. You don't understand, Sarah insisted. War changes you. Violence scars the soul. You're a peaceful species. Don't let us corrupt that. Zentha's crystalline features shifted in what might have been a smile. You misunderstand our nature, Captain. We are not peaceful because we are weak. We are peaceful because we choose to be. But when innocent life is threatened, even pacifists must become warriors. The Keplerion leader gestured to his people. We cannot fight as you do, but we can fight as we are. Our crystals are not just art, they are tools. Our music is not just beauty, it is power. Let us show you what happens when a world itself joins the battle. Before Sarah could respond, alarms began blaring throughout the cavern. Jake's reconnaissance teams were reporting massive troop movements across the planet's surface. The final assault had begun. All units, battle stations, Sarah commanded. This is it, people. Everything we've worked for comes down to the next few hours. On the surface, General Krex stood atop his command vehicle, surveying the crystal city that had become his nemesis. The beautiful spires that had once sung with peace now stood silent, their songs replaced by the harsh sounds of military preparation. I underestimated them, he admitted to Commander Vex. These humans fight unlike any species we've encountered. They don't seek glory or conquest, they seek victory at any cost. What are your orders, General? Vex asked. Total annihilation, Krex replied coldly. No more games, no more clever tactics. We overwhelm them with raw force. Every building, every tunnel, every crystal formation gets leveled. I want nothing left standing. The Zephyrian assault began with a thunderous barrage of artillery. Massive cannons hurled plasma charges into the crystal cities, shattering spires and collapsing buildings. The beautiful architecture that had taken centuries to grow crumbled in minutes. But as the bombardment continued, something unexpected happened. The crystals didn't just break, they sang. Each destruction created a note, and the notes combined into a symphony of resistance. The Keplerians were turning their own deaths into music. What is that sound? Krex demanded, his sensitive hearing picking up the crystalline song. Unknown, sir, Vex reported. It appears to be some kind of harmonic resonance. The crystals are vibrating in sympathy with each other. The song grew louder, more complex. It reached into the underground caverns where the humans waited, filling their hearts with an alien courage that transcended species. Sarah felt tears on her cheeks as she realized what the Keplerians were doing. They're not just dying, she whispered. They're inspiring us. They're showing us what we're fighting for. The human response was immediate and devastating. From every tunnel, every crevice, every hidden position, the Terra Defense Corps erupted in coordinated fury. But this time, they weren't alone. The Keplerians had joined them, not as warriors, but as something more powerful, as the voice of the planet itself. Marcus emerged from underground bunkers with weapons that defied conventional understanding. He had learned to resonate crystal formations into kinetic accelerators, turning the planet's own substance into projectiles. His plasma rifles now fired crystalline rounds that could punch through Zephyrian armor like paper. Elena's medical knowledge had evolved into something approaching magic. She could use harmonic frequencies to heal human wounds instantly while simultaneously disrupting Zephyrian nervous systems. Her field hospitals became fortresses of recovery and regeneration. Jake's reconnaissance teams moved through crystal networks like lightning, appearing anywhere on the planet within seconds. They struck at command centers, supply depots, and communication arrays with surgical precision, then vanished before the enemy could respond. But it was Sarah who embodied the true fusion of human determination and Keplerian wisdom. Standing in the central crystal chamber, she had become something unprecedented. A human conducting a planetary symphony of war. General Krex, she called out, her voice amplified by every crystal on the planet. You wanted to face the best humanity has to offer. Here we are. The Zephyrian general's response was a roar of rage that shook his command vehicle. You think your tricks will save you? I have 30,000 troops still combat ready. I have orbital bombardment capabilities. I have the power to crack this planet open like an egg. Yes, Sarah replied calmly. You do. But you also have something else now. What? Krex snarled. Doubt. The word hit the Zephyrian general like a physical blow. For the first time in his military career, he was fighting an enemy that couldn't be defeated through conventional means. Every tactical advantage he possessed had been neutralized by human ingenuity and Keplerion harmony. You see, General, Sarah continued, her voice carrying across the battlefield, you came here expecting to fight a primitive species and some crystal-singing pacifists. Instead, you found something you've never encountered before, unity, not just between humans, but between species, between ideologies, between war and peace themselves. As if to emphasize her point, the crystal song reached a crescendo that resonated through every Zephyrian warrior on the planet. For a moment, the soldiers of the Empire felt something they had never experienced, the pure, undiluted desire for peace that defined the Keplerion soul. Commander Vex staggered, his weapon falling from nerveless fingers. Around him, other Zephyrian troops were removing their helmets, their eyes wide with wonder. The song wasn't just sound, it was emotion made manifest, and it was breaking through a lifetime of military conditioning. What's happening to my troops? Krex demanded, but his own voice had lost its commanding edge. They're remembering, Sarah explained. Before the Empire, before the conquest, before the endless wars, your people had dreams too. The Keplerians are showing them what peace feels like. The battlefield had become something unprecedented in galactic history. Human soldiers stood alongside Zephyrian warriors, all of them united by the crystalline song that spoke of hope, beauty, and the possibility of a universe without war. But General Krex was not so easily swayed. His lifetime of conquest and brutality had hardened him beyond the reach of even Keplerion harmony. With a roar of defiance, he activated his personal battle armor and leaped from his command vehicle. If my troops won't fight, then I'll finish this myself, he bellowed, his massive form enhanced by powered exoskeleton systems. I challenge you, human. Face me in single combat, and let's end this the old way. Sarah looked up at the towering figure approaching her position. General Krex stood nearly 9 feet tall in his battle armor, his weapons systems capable of leveling city blocks. By every measure of military might, she was hopelessly outmatched. I accept, she said simply. The words sent shockwaves through both human and Zephyrian forces. Marcus started forward, but Sarah held up a hand to stop him. This isn't about winning through superior firepower, she told her team. It's about proving that humans deserve respect, not because of what we can destroy, but because of what we're willing to sacrifice. The duel began in the ruins of what had once been the most beautiful crystal plaza on Kepler for 42B. Krex's weapon systems tracked Sarah's movements with mechanical precision, but she moved like water, flowing between his attacks with an almost supernatural grace. The Keplerion crystals sang around them, their harmony providing a soundtrack to what would become the most legendary single combat in galactic history. But this wasn't a battle between strength and weakness, it was a confrontation between two fundamentally different philosophies of existence. Krex fought to dominate, to crush, to prove his superiority through violence. His every move was designed to inflict maximum damage, to end the fight quickly through overwhelming force. Sarah fought to protect, to preserve, to demonstrate that courage didn't require hatred. Her movements were defensive, redirecting his attacks rather than meeting them head-on, using his own momentum against him. Stand still and fight, Krex roared, his plasma cannons scorching the crystal ground where Sarah had been moments before. I am fighting, she replied, sliding between his legs and striking at a joint in his armor. I'm fighting for everything you're trying to destroy. The battle raged for what felt like hours, but lasted only minutes. Gradually, something extraordinary became apparent to the watching soldiers. Despite his massive advantages in size, strength, and weaponry, General Krex was losing. Not because Sarah was more powerful, but because she was more human. Every move she made was calculated not just to avoid his attacks, but to minimize collateral damage to the surrounding crystals. Every strike she landed was precise, targeting his armor's weak points without causing permanent injury. She was fighting a war while trying to preserve the very beauty that war typically destroyed, and slowly, impossibly, Krex began to understand why. He gasped, his armor systems failing as Sarah's precise strikes had damaged enough components to compromise the whole system. Why don't you just kill me? You have the advantage now. You could end this. Sarah stood over the fallen general, her sidearm pointed at his head. Around them, the crystal song reached a moment of perfect silence, as if the planet itself was waiting for her answer. Because that's not who humans are, she said quietly. We don't fight to destroy our enemies. We fight to save our friends. And maybe, if we're lucky, we find out that our enemies can become our friends too. She holstered her weapon and extended her hand to help him up. General Krex stared at the offered hand for a long moment. In his entire military career, no enemy had ever shown him mercy. No opponent had ever treated him with dignity after defeat. The gesture was so foreign to his experience that he almost didn't know how to respond. Finally, slowly, he reached out and grasped Sarah's hand. The moment their hands touched, the crystal song exploded into a symphony of celebration that could be heard across the entire planet. Human and Zephyrian soldiers alike began to lower their weapons, understanding that something fundamental had changed. I don't understand, Krex said as Sarah helped him to his feet. You defeated me. By rights, I should be your prisoner or your corpse. You're neither, Sarah replied. You're a soldier who was following orders. The question is, what kind of soldier do you want to be from now on? Before Krex could answer, new signals began reaching the planet's surface. The Galactic Council's emergency fleet had arrived in the system, having finally mobilized a response to the Zephyrian invasion. Ambassador Thylos's voice crackled over all communication channels. General Krex, this is the Galactic Council's intervention force. You are ordered to cease hostilities immediately and withdraw your forces from Kepler ion space. Krex looked around at his troops, many of whom were sitting peacefully among human soldiers and Kepler ion civilians. The sight would have been unthinkable just hours before. Council fleet, he replied over the open channel. This is General Krex. My forces are standing down. The words seemed to shock him as much as they shocked his listeners. But as he looked at Sarah, at the humans who had shown him a different way of thinking about conflict, he realized that something inside him had fundamentally changed. Furthermore, he continued, his voice growing stronger, I formally request political asylum from the Galactic Council. The Zephyrian Empire's policies of conquest and genocide are no longer acceptable to me or my forces. The silence that followed was deafening. Then, gradually, voices began to join Krex's declaration. Commander Vex stepped forward, removing his helmet and laying down his weapons. I also request asylum, he announced. Point one by one, thousands of Zephyrian soldiers made the same choice. They had come to Kepler for 42B as conquerors, but they were leaving as refugees, seeking a better way of life. In the crystal chambers beneath the planet's surface, Keeper Zenth watched the proceedings with wonder. Captain Chun, he said to Sarah, what you have accomplished here goes beyond military victory. You have transformed an entire army's understanding of what warfare can achieve. Sarah nodded, exhaustion finally catching up with her. That was never our goal, she admitted. We just wanted to protect innocent people. And in doing so, Zenth replied, you have shown the galaxy that humanity possesses something rarer than superior technology or overwhelming numbers. You possess wisdom. The aftermath of the Battle of Kepler 442b, as historians would later call it, sent shockwaves throughout the galaxy. The Galactic Council, which had dismissed humanity as insignificant just days before, now found themselves dealing with a species that had achieved the impossible. Ambassador Thylos arrived on the planet's surface personally, his blue skin pale with disbelief as he surveyed the scene. Human soldiers were helping to rebuild damaged crystal formations. Zephyrian troops were sharing rations with Kepler ion civilians. Former enemies were working together to heal the wounds of war. Captain Chun, Thylos said, approaching Sarah with something approaching reverence, "The Council owes you and your species a profound apology. We underestimated not just your military capabilities, but your character." "Apology accepted," Sarah replied simply, "but this isn't about proving humanity's worth. It's about proving that cooperation is always better than conquest." The political ramifications were immediate and far-reaching. The Zephyrian Empire, faced with the mass defection of one of their best armies, agreed to a ceasefire and opened negotiations with the Galactic Council. General Krex, now calling himself simply Krex, became an advocate for peaceful resolution of conflicts. The Terra Defense Corps, once mocked as an insignificant force, became a galaxy's most requested peacekeeping unit. Their unique approach to warfare, fighting to protect rather than to destroy, revolutionized military thinking across dozens of star systems. But perhaps most importantly, the alliance between humans, Keplerians, and reformed Zephyrians became the foundation for a new kind of galactic civilization, one based not on the dominance of the strong over the weak, but on the cooperation of all species working toward common goals. Years later, when military academies across the galaxy taught courses on the Battle of Kepler for 42B, they would focus not on the tactics or the technology, but on the moment when 500 humans proved that the size of an army mattered less than the size of its heart. The crystal cities of Kepler 442b were rebuilt, more beautiful than before. But now, their songs carried a new melody, one that spoke not just of peace, but of the courage required to defend it. And whenever young soldiers of any species heard that song, they would remember the day when humanity taught the galaxy that true strength comes not from the ability to make war, but from the wisdom to choose peace. In the end, they had laughed at the tiny army. But the laughter had turned to wonder, then to respect, and finally to hope for a universe where conflicts could be resolved not through destruction, but through understanding. The 500 humans of the Terra Defense Corps had set out to save one world. Instead, they had changed the galaxy forever. And that, as Captain Sarachin often said in her later speeches to the Galactic Council, was exactly what humans did best, the impossible one act of courage at a time.